This is an NBC News special report.
Good morning. I'm Laura Jarrett.
And I'm Tom Yamas. We are following breaking news out of the Middle East.
Just moments ago, a regional diplomatic source close to the talks confirmed that 13 Israeli hostages taken by Hamas in the October 7th terror attack have been set free. They are now with the Red Cross before they will be brought back to Israel later this morning.
Their release is part of a deal between Israel and Hamas that's been in negotiations for weeks. Israel agreeing to a temporary ceasefire as well as the release of dozens of Palestinian prisoners.
NBC's Raf Sanchez is on the ground in Tel Aviv with the very latest. Raf, good morning to you. Bring us up to speed here.
Laura, good morning. That diplomat with knowledge of the situation saying those 13 Israeli women and children are now free from Hamas captivity after 49 days. They are in the custody of the Red Cross, this diplomat says, and they are heading or may have already arrived at the Rafah crossing in Egypt. We are expecting from there that they will be transferred to the Israeli military at the Israeli-Egypt border. Israeli forces there will visually identify each of these hostages because they do not trust that Hamas has necessarily delivered those 13 names that they said they would. The hostages will be given on-the-spot medical checks, and then for the first time in nearly 7 weeks, they will be able to call their families and tell them that they are okay. We are also learning from the government of Thailand that in addition to those 13 Israeli hostages, 12 Thai nationals have also been released. These are, we believe, agricultural workers who were working in those Israeli communities in the south on the 7th of October and were taken hostage as well during that Hamas terror attack. Now, those 12 were not part of these negotiations between Israel and Hamas, mediated by the United States and by Qatar. Hamas says it plans to release those Thai citizens with no preconditions. So we are expecting 25 hostages in total freed from Hamas captivity. We do not at this moment know who those 13 Israeli women and children are. But earlier this morning, a senior U.S. official said no Americans are expected to be part of today's release. Now, that is a painful blow to the American families waiting for news, but especially the family of that American toddler, Abigail Moore Idan, who turns 4 years old today. President Biden said overnight from Nantucket he was hopeful that she might be released today. But as I said, that senior U.S. official saying we are not expecting any Americans to be freed right now. Once those hostages are back in Israeli custody, they will be taken to an air base in the south of Israel, which has been converted into a medical center. And from there, they will be flown by helicopter to various hospitals all across this country. And it is at that point that we expect them to once again be reunited in person with their loved ones, the beginning of what is going to be a long, painful, difficult healing journey, but a first step. And the Israeli military has given a lot of thought about how to handle these hostages who we believe have spent most, if not all, of the last 49 days in tunnels underneath Gaza City. They may be in need of acute medical care. We do not know if they have seen the sunlight. The Israeli military planning to provide noise-canceling headphones to those little children and telling the soldiers to leave their faces uncovered and to smile to reassure the kids. Now, this is day one of what is planned to be a 4-day ceasefire with around 12 hostages released every day. And in exchange, Israel releasing Palestinian women and male teenagers from Israeli prisons. They have been gathered, those prisoners, at a facility in the occupied West Bank ahead of their release. And the hope is that today's deal will hold, the ceasefire will hold, and that every day for the next 4 days, we will see more hostages coming out of Gaza. Guys.
And Raf, as we see some of those live pictures in the video of where we think this transfer may happen, we're following those developments. I do have to ask you, because speaking to the families of those hostages, the trauma they have been put through over these last 7 weeks, Raf, what more do we know on how Hamas is deciding who gets to go and who will stay somewhere in Gaza, likely tortured, being held underneath in those tunnels?
So, Tom, we know that this deal for the first 50 Israeli hostages is women and children only. We are not expecting any men to come out as part of this deal. We are certainly not expecting any of those Israeli soldiers. We have heard from the Qatari government, who brokered this deal, that the plan is to keep families together as these batches of hostages are released. And we do believe that these families, these hostages, are going to be released in the communities that they were taken from. So it's possible that we may see them released one kibbutz at a time, one community at a time. Again, we do not have confirmation of exactly who is part of this initial group of 13, but we hope to see in the coming hours, when we get official confirmation from the Israeli government about what is going on. There is a possibility that this 4-day ceasefire could be extended. One additional day of ceasefire in exchange for 10 more hostages. And the Qataris were very clear. They structured this deal to incentivize both sides to abide by its terms. Hamas would get more days of ceasefire if it releases the hostages. Israel would get more hostages if it holds off its strikes inside of Gaza. How long this ceasefire can hold remains to be seen. We have already seen large crowds of Palestinians inside of Gaza, displaced from their homes, who want to return to them up in the north. The Associated Press reporting at least 2 Palestinians have been killed so far by Israeli fire inside Gaza since the ceasefire went into effect. We asked the Israeli military about that. They said that they were looking into it. But the hope is that this is proof of concept, that there can be an exchange between these mortal enemies, Israel and Hamas, that there can be negotiations that lead to the release of the hostages. And hopefully this is only the beginning of a process that will see more of them emerging. Guys.
All right, Raf, thank you for being on this story from the very beginning of it. And now let's bring in senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell. She is in Nantucket, where President Biden is spending the holiday weekend. Kelly, good morning to you. No Americans released as part of this deal. What is the White House saying this morning to American families, including the family of a girl who is supposed to turn 4 years old?
Well, the concern, of course, is could there be anything that would alter the plan? And at this point, I've been talking with a number of White House officials. They're watching this closely. It is still their expectation that Americans will ultimately be transferred out of the custody of Hamas, but not today. And of course, that is disappointing. And they are watching this as it's developing. A number of officials have said that they are confident that the deal is holding, but of course it is such a fragile situation. The president has indicated that he did not want to say anything publicly until this transfer would take place. We have not yet had an update on the president's schedule today. I am told that they are trying to assess the next steps for how the president would be publicly involved. Privately, we can tell you he has been extensively involved on the phone with officials, from Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, talking with the emir of Qatar, dealing with this with personal diplomacy. And then, of course, he has deployed a number of his top officials to be on the ground and shuttling between the parties. So the White House is watching this. We expect to hear more shortly, according to one official that I spoke to a short time ago. But it was disappointing, clearly, to not have Americans be in this initial transfer of hostages. But the expectation is that Americans will be included. And, of course, this keeps the pressure on. It keeps leverage for Hamas in these ongoing negotiations. And it has been sensitive, but the White House would indicate this is looking like progress and that the negotiations have been effective. So we hope to hear more from the president while he is here with family, doing the things other American families are doing. But he has certainly been deeply engaged in this all morning. Laura?
All right, Kelly, I'll pick it up. Thank you so much for your reporting. Again, if you're just tuning in, 13 Israeli hostages have been released. So far, no Americans. We're going to continue to follow this breaking story throughout the day. Stay with NBCNews.com and streaming, of course, NBC News Now for all the new developments. For now, I'm Tom Llamas.
I'm Laura Jarrett. This has been an NBC News special report.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.